Hi everybody, Dan Hodges with you from the Johnny Appleseed Park District. I'm joined by a very special guest. This is Austin. Austin's one of the Park District's land stewards, and he does a lot of really cool things in his free time. One of them is keeping bees. He keeps pure honey bees that make pure hives and 100% pure honey. He's a purist.
I think that's called apiarist.
Oh, a purist. Well, anyway, we're going to check out some of Austin's hives. He's keeping honeybees. Now, honeybees aren't native to this part of the world. We brought them over here in the 1600s because we weren't sure if the native bees would pollinate our crops. But they also produce honey and wax, which is really important. We still use them today. So, Austin, let's check out these hives. Are these the biting kind, Austin?
No, they stink. This is my original hive. So all that stuff you're seeing there, the sticky stuff, is called propolis, and that's their form of glue.
Bee glue.
Bee glue. So we'll pull out this first frame and see what we got here. So what we got here, there's larvae here, and that would be anywhere from, those are probably 4 days old, I'd say, after hatching.
The open cells that have something in it.
Yes. The cap cells here would be the next stage of the life cycle of the bee. So they go from egg. So right in there you can see the little eggs from egg to larva.
So in here, can you
see
see those little
Yep.
those little Cheerios? Those are baby bees. That's larval bees.
So there you can see that's actually a drone larva. Drones are the
We're
males.
looking at this little
Yep.
white grubbish thing there. So that's a baby bee. That's what a baby bee looks like.
The larvae, they're in larva form for 5 days, and then after 5 days they start to pupate. The bees will cap them over with this beeswax, and they stay there for 12 days.
There's some right in the middle here.
Yep, right there.
Let's go right here. You can kind of see there's things happening inside of these cells. There we go.
After 12 days, they hatch, and all of these are going to be workers here.
Most of them are workers, but there's different sort of clads of bees, right?
Right. So once they hatch, they're called nurse bees, and basically what they do right from the get-go is they'll clean out this cell and get it ready for the queen to lay another egg. After 12 days, they become the guard bees and the undertakers, as well as the honey makers. So the foragers will come in, transfer the nectar to these bees, and then they would work it with their mouths and then fan it with their wings to get the nectar down to the right moisture content, which is 20%. When it comes in, it's roughly about 70% water.
So the bee that I see at my flower is collecting nectar, and it's gonna basically swallow it, right?
Yeah, so bees have a special kind of like a reserve tank called a nectar stomach, and it's not their actual stomach, but it's just a storage for them. So the bee will go out to a flower, suck up that nectar, put it in their nectar stomach, bring it back to the hive, transfer it from the forager bee to these bees here. So on this frame here, we've already went over the cat brood, the larva here. If you can see it, all this open stuff here, there's actually nectar in there that's going to be transferred or turned into honey. And then we got over here, there's a band of pollen, and that's the browner stuff in the cells. And then working our way out, this all is capped honey. So that would be what you could cut this off, put it on a piece of toast, and it'd be what everybody knows as honey.
Delicious. So the bee at the flowers collecting nectar and pollen, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the nectar goes in their stomach, and then they actually have sacs on their legs that they store the pollen on.
And you can see that as the bee's flying around. So the pollen's going to be basically the protein, and the nectar is going to be the carbohydrate, and they need both of those to raise more bees.
Yep, pretty much. They'll feed their brood for the first 2 days. They feed them royal jelly, which is something they secrete from their glands on their forehead. And then after that, they switch all the workers to a brood food, which is a mixture of pollen and honey. That's also called bee bread. Same. This is actually a swarm that I caught this spring. So you can see there's still a lot of bees in here. Each one of these boxes hold about 7,500 bees. So kind of give you a rough, you're looking at probably close to 15,000 bees here.
And this is smaller than the other one. So we've learned already those dark brown cap cells, those are the pupa.
Yep.
There's larvae in there as well. Some of the open ones here, I think, these are these honey or pollen?
Yep, that would be honey there.
Okay, and then they cap them when they're
at 18% moisture content. Yep.
So honey is something that doesn't go bad, and part of the reason is because it has such a low moisture content. So they're basically getting it until they can preserve it that way.
Correct. Yep. Like you said, honey never goes bad. They actually found some in the tomb of a pharaoh, and they deemed that edible.
But all those cap cells are going to be new bees, and then they've got a bunch of capped honey over here.
Yep.
There's honey and nectar in these cells. They're making this wax with their bodies, actually, secreting from the side of their abdomen, right?
Yep, that's right. So this is what we put in at the very beginning. So they go in and put a layer of beeswax on here and draw this comb out further, and then they'll fill it with honey or pollen or brood or whatever they want to. So, and they can't do that until they're a week old, roughly.
Huh. So you mentioned trying to look for the queen. So this is a social group, and the queen lays the eggs, right?
Correct. Well, the queen lays, yeah. In a good hive, the queen's the only one that lays the eggs.
This side over here, some of the honey cap came off. Look at that.
Yep, so that is what everybody would know as honey there. And they can patch this up and it won't be a big deal.
But that right there, that's good. That's good eating honey, right?
Yep, you can put that on your toast right now.
That is awesome.
So, but I'm not seeing the queen. She might be further down in there.
Does she look much different than these worker bees?
Her abdomen's going to be a little bit longer. She is bigger.
So the queen's, her job's lay an egg. And those eggs will become a larva and then become a pupa. And then when they hatch, they stick around the hive for a little while, right?
Bees only live for 6 weeks, so they don't actually become foragers until they're about 22 days old. And that's how they spend the rest of their lives.
So for the first 22 days, they're going to spend, as you call them, nurse bees.
They'll take care of the brood. They will draw all the wax, all the comb that you're seeing here. They do that. They will clean the hive, so they'll take any of the dead bodies out and throw them on the ground out in front of the hive. They turn into guard bees too. So these are the guard bees are the ones flying around us right now trying to sting us.
So we've got worker bees, we've got the queen bee, and this is a baby drone here.
Correct. So trying to find an adult drone. I'm not finding one on here, of course. But the drones are the males and the workers are females.
Females do all the work. They're the ones feeding the young, they're building the hives, they're making the honey, they're protecting the hive. They're the ones foraging and bringing nectar and pollen back. Males, they really only have one job.
Yep, males only have one job, and that is to mate queens, but not the queen that's in the hive. So they'll actually fly out of the hive, and they'll all congregate on one spot and try to get a queen as she passes. And if she passes in their zone, they'll mate her, and then once they mate, they die.
One job, and that's the end. You mentioned a cool thing earlier that it depends on what they're fed as a larva. The first couple days as a larva depends on what they're fed as to what they'll become. Is that right?
Yep. So workers are fed, well, everything's fed royal jelly for the first 2 or 3 days. After that, the nurse bees will determine if they need a queen. They will start feeding one of the eggs royal jelly, which is what they secrete from their foreheads. And if it's just going to be a worker, they're fed a mix of pollen and nectar, which is called bee bread.
So most of these eggs, the queen lays fertilized and unfertilized eggs.
Yep.
And if it's fertilized and it's fed the right diet, it could become another queen.
Yep.
If it's fertilized and fed a different diet, it becomes a worker, and that's what most of these are here. If it's an unfertilized egg, that's where the drones come from.
Right.
And you said there'll be several drones, but a pretty small percentage of the hive.
Yeah, there might only be, on a good hive, 500 some drones compared to the 15,000 that we got here. There's probably only 500 drones in here, and they'll actually kick those out here for too long because they don't really contribute a whole lot other than mating. So we'll go over here.
One more hive.
So this is my best hive that I have, my most established. So far to date, I've got 75 pounds of honey off of this one, and looking to get another 75 to 100 pounds of honey here in probably 2 weeks, depending on what we see today. So this is the final product. Once the honey gets, or the nectar gets down to the moisture content of 18 to 20%, it is capped with a thin layer of beeswax, and it's a finished product. So there's still a little bit here on the sides that need a little bit more dehumidifying, but for the most part, this is what we're looking for when we go to harvest it. Each one of these frames has about 3 to 4 pounds of honey on them. There's 9 frames in each one of these boxes, so there's quite a bit of honey here. And we don't take all of it. So basically what we do is these 3 boxes will be for the bees to get through the winter, because they need, a hive this size needs about 80 pounds of honey to last them through the winter, because they don't die. They actually will lay winter bees, and they'll form a cluster in here and keep this hive about 90 degrees even in the dead of winter. So they need all the energy they can to live, to make it through the winter. So, but yeah, we've got 3 boxes here. All this is the surplus honey that I'll harvest, and then everything below it is what's left for the bees this winter.
So there you go. While honeybees aren't necessarily native to this area, they're still important, and you can learn more about them. And you can learn more about our native bees too, just by using the ODNR Bees and Wasps Field Guide that you've got in your camp kit. So thanks for joining us, and don't forget to get outside.
They might not sting you.